What time is it? It's story time! And this story is called Where's Santa? The story begins in the North Pole at Santa's workshop, where everybody is panicking. There are elves running in every single direction. Even Santa's wife, Mrs. Claus, doesn't know what to do. She's actually pulling out her hair. Everyone is stressed. But why? The reason why is because of one person, Santa. With only 1 week to go until Christmas, he decided to take the reindeers and the sleigh out for a test run to make sure that everything was working properly and that the sleigh could fly super fast. The problem is, he never came back. Mrs. Claus yelled,
"Where is he?"
And the head elf replied,
I don't know. He's never done this before. He's always done a test run and he's always come back.
"But it's a week before Christmas,"
said Mrs. Claus.
"Where is he? I'm worried sick."
Don't worry. We'll stop working immediately and start searching for him.
So every elf stopped what they were doing, put on woolly clothes, and marched out into the snow in search of the missing Santa Claus. While they were all doing this, down in Australia, in a city called Sydney, there were two little kids, a 10-year-old boy named Edgar and a 6-year-old girl named Bibi. They were poor, homeless kids living off the streets. It was a hard life for them both, and every day they needed to beg for money to buy food. Where were their parents, you ask? Well, we don't know what happened to them, but the kids had been orphans for many, many years, and it was very sad. Well, on that same day that Santa went missing, a week before Christmas, they were sitting on the road, singing songs, hoping that people would throw some coins into the hat that they'd put out in front of them. Two very well-dressed boys, around the same age as Edgar and Bibi, came up to them.
Oh no,
Said Edgar.
They're back again. Oh, look at you two.
Said one of the boys.
You're dirty and your singing sounds rubbish.
Go away!
Replied Bibi.
You're rude to us every day. We're singing to get money so we can eat food.
The two boys laughed at them.
Ha ha! You street rats won't get anything with singing like that. Here's the only thing you'll get.
They opened their pockets and threw a pile of empty lolly wrappers into the hat. Edgar and Bibi were so upset. They pushed the hat aside and Edgar said,
We'll get them back one day. We'll definitely get them back.
Meanwhile, back in the North Pole, they still hadn't found Santa.
We've looked everywhere,
said the head elf.
We've even gone to other places in the world. We checked Africa and Europe, Russia, Ireland, England, you name it. We've searched everywhere. He's nowhere to be found.
"There's only one thing we can do then,"
said Mrs. Claus.
"We need to hit the red button and tell the world."
We can't do that.
Gasped the head elf.
It's never been done before.
"We have no choice. If Santa doesn't come back, there'll be no toys for all the children, and Christmas will be ruined, and I'm worried sick about him."
Mrs. Claus went into Santa's office where she found a big red button inside a glass case sitting on his desk. It had a sign that read, "Only break glass and press button in an absolute emergency." She didn't hesitate. She smashed the glass with a wooden toy and immediately pressed the button. There was a loud rumble, and then suddenly the far wall of the office began to slide apart to reveal a huge TV screen. It lit up, and there was thousands of little tiny TV screens there as well. Each one was linked to news channels all around the world.
"People of the world,"
said Mrs. Claus,
"I need your help. Santa is missing. If anyone has seen him or has any information whatsoever about his whereabouts, we need to hear from you. There's a reward for anyone who can find him."
Her message went out to every television screen in the whole wide world. And as it would happen, Edgar and Bibi were walking past a shop that sold televisions. Looking into the shop through the glass window, they could hardly believe their eyes. Mrs. Claus was on TV and Santa was missing. Bibi turned to Edgar and said,
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Sure am.
said Edgar with a smile.
We're gonna find Santa and win that reward. Yeah.
I wonder what it is.
Said Bibi.
Maybe it's something amazing.
Maybe it's food. We could have a Christmas feast. But where do we start looking?
Bibi began looking into the cracks of the pavement.
What are you doing?
Asked Edgar.
I'm looking for Santa.
Edgar laughed.
You won't find him in those cracks. Santa's big. He has a big fat belly. He's not going to be in small cracks. He wouldn't fit.
Well, at least I'm trying.
Said Bibi. Edgar had an idea.
Let's go down to the town centre where the big Christmas tree is. Maybe we'll find him there.
So they set off down the road and arrived at the town centre. And they couldn't believe how huge the tree was. It was massive, with thousands of flickering coloured lights.
He's not here.
Said Bibi.
I don't see Santa, so what do we do now?
Edgar stared at the tree and noticed the big star at the top.
I'm going to climb that tree and I'm going to get a better view, alright?
No, Edgar, don't.
But Edgar didn't listen.
I'm good at climbing, don't worry.
He started on the first branch, and within minutes he was halfway up the tree. It was windy and the tree began to rock from side to side. He looked back at Bibi and noticed that loads of people had started gathering around to see what he was doing. Even the fire brigade and police had arrived.
You up there! Get down from that tree right now!
Called the fireman. Edgar ignored him. The tree was the height of 3 tall houses. And when he finally got to the top, it was very scary because it was so windy and wild. Edgar was regretting climbing the tree and clung to the huge star at the top for safety. He looked down. Hundreds of people had gathered now, and they looked so small from that height. A huge gust of wind blew, and Edgar almost lost his grip. But then something very peculiar happened. He heard a voice whisper in the wind, and it said, "Help me! Find the doorway! Help me!" Could it possibly be? Had the wind carried Santa's voice? Edgar could hardly believe his ears. But then he heard another voice which distracted him. It was the fireman again.
Get down! There's a trampoline here for you to jump down onto. Come down this minute.
Edgar looked at the trampoline that the firemen were holding, and he shouted,
Geronimo!
as he sprung from the tree. When he landed, the police and fire brigade were not happy.
All right, you need to come down to the police station with us. You can't be climbing Christmas trees. It's so dangerous.
Edgar did not wait. He grabbed Bibi by the hand and shouted,
Run!
They dashed off down the street, with the police and the fire brigade chasing close behind. The 2 kids knew the streets very well, and before long, they found a laneway where they could hide. The police were puffing and panting, but they couldn't find them.
Why did you do that?
Yelled Bibi.
You won't believe it. I heard a voice at the top of the tree.
That was the fireman shouting.
Moaned Bibi.
No, I heard Santa's voice blowing in the wind. He said, help me, find the doorway.
Really?
Bibi was excited.
What doorway? What does it mean?
I don't know.
The 2 of them sat on the ground, desperately trying to think of what the doorway would be. And then, like magic, something caught their eyes at exactly the same time. As they stared right ahead, on the concrete wall in front of them, there was an old dusty tourist sign, and it read, "This spot was once the doorway to the old city."
Doorway!
Shouted Bibi.
That's its doorway!
The 2 of them walked closer, but beneath the sign there was no door. It was just a concrete wall.
There's nothing here, baby. Maybe there was a door here a long time ago, but it's gone now.
Bibi wasn't happy and smacked the wall with her hand. But as she did, Her hand disappeared. It got sucked into the wall.
Oh no, my hand's gone. Oh no!
Edgar reached in to get her hand, but as he did, his disappeared too. The two of them were desperately trying to drag themselves back from the wall, but it was no use. They could feel themselves getting pulled closer and closer. And that's when Bibi suddenly smiled and said,
Don't worry, Edgar. This is a doorway.
I don't think this is a good idea.
yelled Edgar. With a whoosh, the two of them got pulled into the wall, and then everything changed. Suddenly, the two of them were traveling at supersonic speed. Like a massive vacuum cleaner was sucking them along. They couldn't even talk properly.
Where are we going?
Yelled Edgar.
I don't know.
All around them, they could see swirling mists of beautiful green and red light, and snowflakes were drifting down. Then, suddenly, their ride came to an end as they were shot out from the strange place into the air, right across the sky, and to their surprise, landed in freezing cold water. It was nighttime. The full moon was shining, and there were massive blocks of ice called icebergs all around them. The water stung. It was that cold, and Edgar immediately shouted,
Quick, we have to get out of here. We're gonna freeze to death.
They quickly swam to a nearby iceberg and climbed out of the water.
Where are we?
Said Bibi as she shivered.
I think we're in the North Pole.
Said Edgar, who was also shivering.
The North Pole has loads of icebergs.
Oh, it's so cold.
They were in the middle of nowhere, sitting on an iceberg. They yelled at the top of their lungs through their shattering, shivering teeth. Then they heard another voice. Help me! It was deep, and it yelled again. I'm stuck! The kids' eyes opened wide with shock.
Who said that?
Yelled Edgar. Who do you think? Ho, ho, ho! The voice replied.
We don't know.
Shouted Bibi. Okay, I'll say it again. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Who do you think it is now?
I think it's Santa.
Cried Bibi excitedly.
Santa, where are you? We can't see you.
I'm right here. The kids looked at each other. Right here could mean anywhere.
Santa, keep talking. We'll follow your voice.
Shouted Edgar. So Santa started singing Christmas carols, and as he did, the children listened very carefully to try and discover where his voice was coming from. They couldn't figure it out. It wasn't coming from their left, and it wasn't coming from their right. Could it be coming from underneath them? They both put their ears down onto the iceberg. And would you believe it? Santa's voice became louder.
He's stuck in the ice.
Screamed Bibi.
Santa, are you stuck in the ice?
Ho, 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 yes I am. And so are my reindeers and sleigh. He must have crashed right into it. He was way down in the ice, and the kids couldn't even see him.
Don't worry, Santa.
Said Edgar.
We're gonna get you out.
He turned to Bibi and said,
We have to dig him out of the ice. It's the only thing that we can do. We have to chip away the ice, otherwise he's gonna freeze.
The two of them sat down on the freezing ice under the moon and started to claw away at the ice with their bare hands. It was so cold and the ice was so hard, but slowly it began to chip away. Santa was still singing, and it was getting louder and louder the more they dug into the iceberg.
Santa sounds a bit silly.
Said Bibi.
He does, doesn't he? Maybe he's so cold he can't think straight. So let's keep digging.
Suddenly, they could see a bright red light.
It's him.
Well, the two of them got so excited they seemed to get superhuman strength and broke loads more of the ice. As it turns out, the bright red light was not Santa. It was Rudolph's red nose. They petted him and said,
You're okay, Rudolph.
Rudolph was very friendly and started to help with the rescue mission, breaking the ice with his hooves. And so did all the other reindeers as their legs became free. The iceberg was breaking away in huge chunks now, and then suddenly, with an almighty crash, like an ice explosion, the sleigh and Santa shot up into the air, and with Santa's right hand he reached out and grabbed Edgar, and with his left hand he grabbed Bibi, and he pulled them both onto the sleigh with him. Within seconds, they were high up in the sky, and the sleigh was soaring past the moon. The kids couldn't believe their eyes. Santa let the sleigh stop in the air and turned to the two kids.
You guys saved me. I thought I was going to be stuck there forever.
How'd you end up in the iceberg?
Asked Edgar.
I was trying a special loop-de-loop, and I landed down deep in the water. And as I tried to fly back up, I crashed into the iceberg.
Santa's suit was soaking wet, and his face was blue with frost.
Are you really Santa?
Asked Bibi. Santa realized that he didn't really look himself, so he suddenly clapped his hands. As he did, a beautiful sparkling dust floated all around them, and as it settled, all three of them had changed. Bibi was suddenly dressed in a beautiful princess gown, and Edgar was in very cool swag gear. As for Santa, his suit was sparkling, shiny red. Everyone looked amazing, and most important, they were warm and dry again. Santa looked at the kids.
How did you know I was in trouble?
It was on the news. Mrs. Claus was on the news. It was everywhere. And then I heard you on the big tree say, "Come to the doorway."
Oh, you're wonderful kids, said Santa. But we need to hurry home and let Mrs. Claus know I am okay. Hold on tight.
They swooshed up into the sky and zoomed off, landing moments later at Santa's house in the North Pole. Everyone was so excited to see Santa. The elves, Mrs. Claus, they all cheered, and Mrs. Claus gave Santa a huge hug. After all the cheering was finished, everyone turned to Edgar and Bibi, who were still sitting in the sleigh.
You saved Christmas!
Said Mrs. Claus.
How will we ever thank you?
Bibi and Edgar looked at each other.
We would just love a home for Christmas.
Said Edgar.
A Christmas day with presents, family, friends, and food and dinner.
Santa smiled, and so did Mrs. Claus. And then he spoke to the kids.
We know all about you two children. You have had a hard life, but your hearts are pure. As our Christmas present to you, we would like you to live with us here in the North Pole. We would love to adopt you and call you our daughter and our son.
Adopt us?
Screamed Bibi with joy, and then raced over and gave Santa and Mrs. Claus a huge hug. Edgar quickly joined her. It was the greatest news they could ever have heard.
But Santa,
Said Bibi.
can you do something else for us?
She smiled at Edgar, who knew exactly what she was thinking.
Yes.
Said Edgar.
Can you do us a favor?
Bibi whispered in Santa's ear. He smiled.
Well, I don't normally do that kind of thing, but I think for you two, I'll make a Christmas exception. Let's go.
They all climbed back into the sleigh and flew down to Australia, to Sydney. And guess who they saw? The two mean boys who had put the lolly wrappers in their hat.
There they are.
Shouted Bibi.
Ho, ho, ho!
Yelled Santa.
Let's give them a little scare.
He steered the sleigh towards the boys and then flew down really close to them. Both boys ducked as he did, and they fell into a huge, wet, dirty puddle. Santa turned the sleigh around to face them in the sky. The two boys couldn't believe their eyes. They could see Edgar and Bibi sitting with Santa.
You two are officially on Santa's naughty list.
And his dirty list.
Laughed Bibi. Santa shot back into the sky, and within minutes, the kids were back at their new home in the North Pole. Edgar and Bibi loved living with Santa, Mrs. Claus, and all the elves, and that was the best Christmas ever. And that is the end of the story.